I'm curious what your take on the meta is, and also Yone specifically. What's your take on it?
For sure. I feel like there's actually like a lot more power in two cost stuff than I've noticed in a long time. Kindred has looked absolutely insane. I had a Kindred 2 out DPSing Kane 2 on a 4 Reaper board. It was like blue buff Morello's like Trap Claw. And my Kane was BT Titans with Last Whisper. It was like a well itemized Kane, and this Kindred was just absolutely pumping. And that's not just on that board. I've seen Kindred out DPSing like Syndra's, right? They both have good items. So Kindred seems very good. I'll take this back step because what I've noticed today playing is that I haven't felt very consistent on the fast 8, fast 9 stuff, right? Because if I go fast 8 and then I decide to roll down instead of going 9, I got out capped. And if I go fast 9 and I feel like strong enough, then I like, well, it's like feels very hit or miss to actually hit your stuff, and then like often get out capped as well. And the things I notice myself getting out capped by are always one of two things. One is Kindred, with boards that play around Kindred mid game, right? Like the Faded boards, I've seen them capping very high. The Reaper boards, I've seen them capping very high. And two is the boards that play around Zyra. Zyra has been known to be a very strong unit for a while now, right? You know, they changed 3-cost odds. The 3-cost reroll definitely is doable. I've seen some Zoe do very well today. I've seen a little bit of Yone do well. I haven't seen it win a game yet, actually. And the things that I've seen succeed the most are still very much like those 4-cost boards, but in particular the 4-cost boards that play out of the really, really strong 2-costs. I've seen Zyra 2 beat like 2-star 4-cost boards. Like Zyra 2, Zoe 2, like a Lowy 2 or something, right? I've seen Kindred 2 beat like these 2-star 4-cost boards, like keep up with them. And so what it really feels like is that if you're not playing towards just like a 2-cost, and this is, we talked a little bit ago about how some of the changes they've made and like this meta in general where it's relatively imbalanced is very much leaned towards like this idea of like fast 8ing, fast 9ing, right? Playing around like the really high quality units and like kind of sacking till you get there. It feels like there is a lot more room to try to play around in mid game. I haven't tested that out extensively, and this is why I'm saying like this is probably a good thing to experiment this week and to like, you know, watch Soap, watch Setsuko, see what they're doing and see if they're playing around this similarly. To try to play around these like 2-costs that are like very, very good, and then also the hero augments, right? Like obviously you're picking Garen hero augment, you're picking Kobogo hero augment, you're picking maybe Shen, right? You're probably picking Yorick. They're very good. These things that like let you play around lower cost units are very good. I think Lux can even be there potentially with the right boards if you get the right mana item on Lux. I like the right like artifact on Lux, you do some crazy stuff. So it feels like a lot of the game for me right now. And I haven't played much around Aatrox, but like Kiana is still very good, obviously, right? Aatrox is maybe good now. He's gotten buffed for like 8 patches in a row. So yeah, he should be good. So yeah, a lot of the game feels like it's around 2-cost stuff. I've seen Teemo reroll do very well today. It really seems like playing around these 2-costs and making sure that you're stabilized around like this idea of a 2-cost. And then the big thing is that it means you don't have to hit your 4-cost immediately. You know, because Kindred 2 can carry with like a Syndra 1 on the board. You know, Senna 2 in the right situation maybe. But, you know, Kiana 2 and like a Lee 1, right, can do very, very good work. Same thing with Janna 2 and a Lilia 1 if you have the right items for it. Stuff like the Zyra 2, like a Morg 1. It is really important to make sure you're finding a way to stabilize around 2-costs more so than 1-costs, right? Because I played a lot of AD lines today, particularly with the Yone stuff. You know, playing like classic like Darius was Heavenly Opener into like trying to like play like Heavenly Reaper. I know that like the Brawler version is more popular right now, but I just wanted to experiment with it and see how it felt. And I definitely felt like I really didn't like playing around the 1-costs for very long. Like the Kindreds were beating me, the Zyras were beating me. A lot of these back my 2-costs. Obviously the Kianas as well. They were just kind of out unit me. And I think what it is that we've reached a point now where the 2-costs have gotten buffed enough and like the meta has changed enough where like the 2-costs do feel, in my opinion, like a really big part of where the power of a board is right now. And there are certainly 3-costs that are strong too, right? Like you said, I think it's worked for me with Yone. I do think Yone is good. I think you almost always want to play 4 Reaper with it. From what I can tell, 4 Reapers is definitely looking a lot better. And the big thing is that Kindred is not a dead unit in 4 Reaper, in my opinion, because I think you actually often can like, you know, if you get a lot of AP items, you can just itemize Kindred and itemize Yone and like have a very solid board that, you know, you never go less than 6th off like Yone 2, Kindred 2 probably, as long as you're looking for it earlier in the game. You know, you can cap out on like Kane and Yone 3 and stuff for sure. But yeah, it feels very good. It feels like there's lots of things to itemize in Yone stuff. So definitely worth experimenting more with. I think, you know, if you roll in 7, it's kind of hard because you want to play the 4 Brawler, 4 Reaper version. So like it might just be like a roll in 8 thing, and like again, mostly play around Yone 2, Kindred 2, and then if you get there, you get there. If you don't, you don't. There's like so many things to itemize that I don't think you want to say be super focused on like dual carrying a Kane, because I think it's just really hard to get to Kane, and it falls into some of the really big weaknesses that Yone himself has, where he just kind of gets blown up in a lot of situations. like Syndra will destroy a Kayn, Syndra will also destroy a Yone. But like if you have Kindred doing a lot of your backline DPS, it can be very helpful to avoid that situation, in my opinion. I think you can even if you get the +1, you can just
Are
drop
you
like
trying to
you can
roll
just.
for?
Oh, sorry, go ahead. Oh, so you can go
Are
ahead.
you trying to roll for Kane on 7 or 8 usually?
I think if you do want to play for Kayn, you want to play for an 8, which is why I think you often don't want to play necessarily
Okay.
for Kayn. Per se, you want one copy of Kayn, right? If you're rolling on 7, if you feel like you have to, you want to look for one copy of Kayn. But I feel like it's such that you probably don't want to roll on 7 often for it. I'm not 100% sure if people are playing it right now. I haven't seen a lot of it, like the Brawler Reaper version. But I imagine that if you're playing with Reaper Spat, you could roll on 7, right? If you just happen to get like one Kayn, one Silas, you're there. And you just like, Reaper Spat the Silas, whatever. But in general, like, and that's that situation. If you have like maybe a lot of Kindreds and a lot of Yones and you're uncontested, that would be a good spot to do that. But I think more often than not, you can just use it like pretty temporarily. Like I saw a guy today, like very, very, very solidly top 4 a game off of Yone 2, Kindred 2 for a Brawler on 8. Like that was their
Hmm.
board. They had itemized Yone, they had itemized Kindred, they had like triple combat augment, right? To just make sure their board was getting a lot of value. They didn't. If you take an econ augment, obviously you have to be 3-starring your shit in that kind of situation. But if you just take like some really strong augments and you just want to play for a 4th, you totally can play around Yone and Kindred, in my opinion. Like, they definitely feel good enough. We'll see how that evolves in the next couple of days. But I just feel like a lot of the game right now, in my mind, is just like how well can you find it to like a good 2 cost to stabilize around slash like maybe one of the better 1 costs. Like I think Sivers maybe one of those better 1 costs, right? If like AD stuff, if you want to build like backline AD items, I think Sivers maybe even more trustworthy than Senna more often than not, depending on what units you have and what your ink shadow is. But then you kind of go from there, and then like the level 8, level 9 stuff is definitely very hard right now. I feel like in terms of understanding when you need to keep
Yeah.
rolling 8, when you can go to 9, because it's hard to tell. Like some people just kind of like roll twice on 8 and hit, and it's just kind of the nature of the game right now, where it's like that guy gets to go 9 now, and it's fine. And so you have to say like, okay, well maybe you roll a little bit on 8, and if you hit a couple of units, and you roll down to 0, and then you go 9. It can be hard to outcap stuff. So I would say that more often than not, I am looking, and this is not to say that you have to play like this or that this is the only way to do it, but what I'm looking for right now, I'm looking for combat augments that just give me board strength immediately, and I'm looking to stabilize off of like 2 and 3 costs, and then I will transition to 4 costs as they come. But I want that power rather than like econ augments. I want that power on my board like immediately. One, just for a more stable mid game, but two, because it just means that I can stabilize with less, right? Like you will be beating the guy with like a 1-star 4 cost if you're Yone 2, Kindred 2. You can even beat the guy with like 1-star, a 2-star 4 cost, like 1-star front line, right? If they're like Lilia 2 with 1-star front line, you'll probably beat them with like Yone 2, Kindred 2, and upgraded boards. So
Hmm.
if you have, if they're like investing in something like reinforcement, and then you took like, I don't know, like harm assist or, whatever it might be. But yeah, that's my thoughts. I don't know if that's matched up with what you felt or.
Yeah, I think a lot of the forecast play has been very just high variance,
Yes.
where yeah, you either
That
hit or
is,
most of the time you
yeah.
don't, and then especially if you're contested, then you're pretty much screwed. And then there are the situations where even if you kind of deploy all your gold and you do hit, but then you hit someone that's outcapping you, so then you get you get screwed anyway. Whereas if you had stabilized earlier in stage 3, early stage 4, then maybe you would have preserved HP anyway and had a higher placement. So I guess taking that approach, like, are you more proactively rolling a bit on 3-2 and 3-5?
So I think what it normally comes up with, or what it comes to, is that I will more proactively hold units that I see that I could play, right? Like instead of selling Yone for econ, I'll hold the Yone. I will come up with itemization, and that I will, instead of making an item that I think is good on Ash, I'll make an item that I think is good on like Aphelios, or make an item that, not that they're any different, because in that situation like they're the same items, right? But maybe I'll make an item that I think is good on like a Kindred. I'll be playing like towards Yone items, and I'll be like, okay, well this Kindred 2 holds items well as well. Like I have like double rod drop. I'm not going to greed one for like Morello's and one for like Crown Guard. I'm just going to make a Rabadons on my Kindred because I can just play around that for a while and it's fine. So I think what it often comes up with is up into is that I think I do roll more right now than I am used to rolling this set on in stage 3.
Mm-hmm.
but I think it more so comes up in terms of like not greeting items in the same way. Like I'm not trying to greed flip my best forecast items in any way. I'm more willing, which I think like, a couple patches ago I was, which I know I've always talked about how you want to play your forecast based around what items were working on your units earlier in the game, which I think was harder to apply than normal this set, just because for a couple patches there, because like the game was all forecasts, right, and everyone would just roll down, and it was hard to play any mid games. The units weren't good enough. But now it feels like I'm more willing to say, okay, well, I'm going to instead make items that are good on this thing right now, instead of greeting like for items that I think could go on something in this line later. Which again, I think the big thing is that like not like being willing to like kill 2 rods or like 2 tiers or something for a blue buff instead of greeting for like Hodge plus like protectors or like Gunblade plus Crown Guard or something, right? For the 4 cost Reapers, I would rather just make it item for Kindred and play around Kindred 2 and have a better Kindred 2 for like the whole game essentially. And so that's where I think where Roll Siege comes in, that mindset thing where it is mostly, it's less like I'm less like I'm gonna roll a bunch and more that I'm gonna be more willing to play around the units that I am hitting, and more that I'm gonna be more willing to like make the Kindred items rather than like make the Kane items, if that makes sense.